Welcome into the USFL Betting Show for Week 6. I am Drew Martin, joined by Adam Trigger and Tony Mejia of WagerTalk.com. We're breaking down the 4 games on this week's slate this weekend. Going around the horn here, Adam Trigger at Top Flight SI. Check out his work, WagerTalk.com. Trig, welcome in, man. How you feeling this Thursday?
Feeling good, Drew. Missed you guys last week. Glad to be back. Hopefully we can start cashing some USFL winners. I actually like this week's slate. I think has maybe the best matchups we've had in a couple weeks as far as being able to sort of manipulate the spread a little bit. So hopefully that means we cash some winners this week in the USFL.
Sure. We got back-to-back double headers Saturday and Sunday, guys. So this weekend, if you're looking for some action on the gridiron, we're about to, give you our looks here. Maybe get you on some right sides. I know a guy that pretty good at doing that here. Tony Mejia, Orlando, Florida. Tony, welcome in, man. How you feeling?
What's up, Drew? How are you? Pleasure to be back. I watched 3 out of the 4 USFL games, but I must confess I was busy sweating out a 5% play with Boston-Milwaukee Game 7, so I watched none of the Houston Gamblers' latest collapse. So 3 straight losses at the gun for them. That's not a coincidence, I guess, huh?
No, and a tough ratings grab there for the USFL up against the Game 7 in the NBA playoffs. But hey, it is what it is. It actually might create more value for us sports bettors because it might get us a little bit more inefficient marketplace. But let's get into it, guys. Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern kick here, Trig. We're seeing the Tampa Bay Bandits up against the Philadelphia Stars. Total of 39.5 at DraftKings, 41 at Caesars. We're seeing -2 in the hook or -3 pretty much across the board at the WagerTalk odds screen. What are you liking here? Tampa Bay and Philadelphia kicking us off week 6, Trig.
Well, Drew, I'll start by saying I'm disappointed in the Stars. I know they've had the Scott go down. They had a quarterback injury, but I thought that this team kind of having some continuity coming from the old spring league was going to come into this league and be one of the teams that was more well coached and just, maybe made less mistakes, what have you. But, Philadelphia Stars last week, they just got out coached by Birmingham, and to not only a loss, but not to cover the number. I didn't have anything in that game, but I felt like the Stars played well and really just didn't. It was like poor coaching decisions and not being able to adapt to Jamar Smith that really just kind of cost them that game. So with that, I guess with that being said, I think that's something that they could potentially clean up. They only ran the ball 7 times in that game last week, which is in this league that I feel like you're not going to win. If you run the ball 7 times in this league, you're probably losing the game. That's my gut thought right there. Tampa Bay, another team that's been pretty disappointing. If you go back to the beginning of the season, this was a team that was widely sort of considered to be a contender in this league, and I think they've, for what they were supposed to be to what they are, they're right up there with the most underwhelming teams in the league. They did get the win last week, but just looking at the number, I look at these 2 teams. I see, 2 teams that are relative disappointments. Tampa Bay's got a negative point differential, which I think is a kind of a red flag. And I just don't really know that Tampa Bay should be favored here. So I haven't got to the window with this one yet, but I'm certainly leaning Philly just out of the respect that I think that their mistakes are maybe more correctable. The backup quarterback has been serviceable. I think had they mixed up the plays a little bit and threw some more runs in there, they could have at least covered the number last week because they really were competitive against Birmingham. So I just look at these 2 teams as equals, and if you're going to give me a field goal with 2 teams that I feel are very equal, that's the way I'm going to look. So I lean toward the Stars +3 here, Drew.
Okay, yeah, guys, you can get +3 as we're talking now Thursday afternoon at Caesars and at DraftKings. So if you're in Vegas, or if not, you might have an opportunity to get that. It's 2.5 at a lot of other books. So important to shop around here, important to use the WagerTalk odds screen. Tony, any quick thoughts here on the kickoff for week 6?
Well, this is the expected to be the highest scoring game and the tightest game based on the spreads, and I'm in total agreement because I made my own spreads and much lower scoring games and or totals for me. But I guess we have a bit of an overreaction based on all four games went over last week, right? They all got into the 40s with totals in the 30s. Am I right on that?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, look, from that standpoint, I'm in agreement that these are two teams that should hopefully get things going the right way in terms of getting us going on an exciting week. I'm looking at the daily thing, which I should have done before the show, but just give me a second. We've got 90-degree weather and potential for a thunderstorm in the lid lifter to week 6. It's on my radar, but humidity in Birmingham is going to cause defenses to potentially wear down in the second half. So maybe a lean to the over here. To Adam's point, I thought that the most entertaining spread game in week 5 was it felt like all times watching a Sunday game that came down to, all right, well, we could get a backdoor cover. We could get a bad beat for anybody that did lay the number because it looked like the Stallions were potentially going to be stopped at the 1 yard line and then just take a knee. And then they got in and punched it in and won by 13, laying 7. So that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, the final score was misleading because Philadelphia did have a chance to tie the game in the fourth quarter. They forced a 3 and out, and then they roughed the kicker. So very, poorly coached in terms of that and bad breaks. And again, the Stallions continue to benefit from home field advantage. I was on the Tampa Bay Bandits bandwagon to start the season, and I still think we could see a Jordan Ta'amu second half surge. He's certainly calling his own number more. He's very capable. So I lean Tampa Bay here. I think the number's exactly right. I made it 3, and my total was 38. And again, that's my highest total on the board. So I'm kind of going back to what we saw prior to week 5, where we expected lower scoring games, especially with the clock running with the incompletion. So we'll see. Maybe we get regression to the mean with the totals. I would lean Tampa Bay in the under.
Tony, I like what you said there, Jordan Ta'amu. I was looking to kind of bet on him more too. One thing I've noticed from just kind of watching this league is I want the quarterback that one can run and one will run. You know what I mean? Because I think the quarterback being able to kind of take the ball, Tony, and run, it opens up, the passing as well. So with the teams that are doing that more, they're the ones I kind of have circled to bet on more as we go forward. But you bring up the totals as well, Tony. And guys, it's something interesting, in what the quarters number 1 and number 3, I believe they're running the clock on incomplete passes. They started it 2 weeks ago. And I was looking to bet unders last week, Tony, but you're right. It was kind of more of an over week for sure. So just something to watch there, guys, throwing out tidbits about kind of what I'm picking up. And actually talking about best bets, this next game, Tony, is one that I have circled here. I don't know if it's square. I just think this Birmingham team is for real. And under a touchdown, -6 in the hook, I think we get a little value there actually. But hey, +6.5 on the other side. The Michigan Panthers, 37 in the hook being the total. I'm looking to lay the 6 in the hook here with the home favorite in the Birmingham Stallions. Tony, what are you thinking?
I would totally be with you on that as well. I made it Birmingham -7.5. So dare we say we have a USFL trap line? And just for conversation's sake, because I really don't have an opinion on this yet, here are 2 reasons why you might want to bet the Panthers and take the points. One, there will be thunderstorms in the Birmingham area. 70% in the forecast right now, which might put a damper, pun intended, on attendance, and that's really been a factor for the Stallions. The second reason is Michigan has seen Shea Patterson step up a little more, and Jeff Fisher loosened the reins a little bit on him. He had his best game last week. It didn't result in a win against the Bandits because Tom did make plays down the stretch, but Michigan's offense certainly looked better than it has, and considering they're able to run the ball and their defense is sound, this could be a game where they're pretty competitive.
And Trig, what do you think it's Saturday night, man? The Stallions, the home favorite, or maybe the dog is barking here? Plus 6 in the hook, could even find plus 7 out there.
Well, Drew, I haven't bet this yet, but I think this could be the shock of the week here. I think Michigan could win this game. The reason I say that, listen, Birmingham, they've been the best team. I'm not going to argue with the fact that they've definitely been the best team. I think it's got a lot to do with Smith just being a great athlete, and that seems to play in this league. We'll get into another game in a little bit where you throw an athletic quarterback, in there, and it just seems to fix a lot of the problems that literally every team in this league has. But Michigan, Jeff Fisher's kind of staying the course. He's just continued to go with Patterson despite his early struggles, and then last week we see Patterson, have a decent game. He's figured out that he can sort of move the ball with his legs as well. Rob Veno has talked about it for a couple weeks now. Michigan's defense is solid. Their pass rush is really good, and that tends to translate to wins in football. And, Birmingham, if we're just talking about the spread for a minute, they have played some close games, and they've been fortunate. I'll call them fortunate. I still think they've played winning football and they've made plays when they need to. But if you go back through pretty much, almost every one of their games, it's kind of taken a big play late to either win or cover the number. Go all the way back to week 1. They needed a late drive to beat New Jersey. They needed a fourth quarter score to beat the Gamblers. Last week, I talked about it earlier, the Stars played, I would say, a pretty competitive, even game with Birmingham for the majority of the game, and they ended up being able to extend that late and then fended off a backdoor cover on the final, couple plays of the game. The Breakers game with Birmingham, New Orleans led in the fourth quarter. So, I would say maybe an outside, maybe a little stretch to think Michigan can win here, though I do think they can. But 6.5 points. This feels like it's a competitive game to me. Remember, way back to the beginning of the season, there's a reason that Michigan was the preseason pick to win the whole thing. They had the lowest odds. Just Jeff Fisher's a veteran, and I feel like he's sort of weathered the storm with this Michigan team, and maybe he starts to see some results. So again, I haven't locked anything in yet in USFL for this week, but I'm kind of looking toward Michigan being able to potentially pull a big surprise here.
All right, Trig, let's flip the page here to Sunday. The kickoff Sunday, 12 noon Eastern. Got an early kick here, 9 a.m. Pacific. Pittsburgh Maulers, New Orleans Breakers. Looking at the WagerTalk odds screen, we're seeing the Breakers minus 8-point favorites, 36 being the total. Of course, the Breakers sitting at 3-2. Kind of a shocker last week, dropping that one, Trig. You think this is a bounce back, or you think that was kind of, hey, maybe something more to come here? Maybe this Breakers team is being overvalued, having to lay more than a touchdown. What are you thinking early on Sunday?
Well, the only game I bet last week for a best bet for a client playing USFL was the Breakers. And I watched every second of that game and left that game feeling like they should have gotten killed. They probably deserved to lose by more. And they were fortunate to even be in the game as long as they were. I think this is a giant spread. And one of, I guess, my general sort of thought going into this week is the football in this league has been poor, in my opinion. I read a stat. I think it's maybe one of every three plays, over 30% of the plays, there's been either a mistake, a penalty, some sort of error on whatever it may be. And that kind of leads me to believe that some of these numbers are inflated. And this would be one of them where I would say, even if I like the Breakers, I don't know how you just lay 8 here with this team. Because, Pittsburgh, they're getting judged based on what's happened so far this season. But the Maulers look like a very different team last week. And, I think you throw Vad Lee in there at quarterback, and all of a sudden they can run the ball a little bit. He kind of has that, Jamar Smith, sort of dual threat ability. And if you look at the teams that are winning games in this league right now, the Generals, the Stallions, they have quarterbacks that make plays with their legs and, can basically turn nothing into something. Or, in the case of like maybe the Generals and even Birmingham to an extent, can just kind of run option with their quarterback and let them make plays. So, looking at what Pittsburgh was able to do last week, albeit against Houston, who is still, in my opinion, they're a bad team that's played their way to being worse, because they probably have not played even close to as bad as their record makes them look. Mejia said earlier in the show, I mean, they keep losing games like right at the final whistle. So, 3 or 4 of those games that they've lost so far this year, they could have easily won. That was an impressive result for Pittsburgh last week. And, you come into this, and I think like the quick sort of knee-jerk like thought would just be like, all right, well, here's a get-right spot for New Orleans. They're just going to hammer this team. But I don't think it's going to be that easy for New Orleans. So number seems high. Once again, I haven't locked this in yet, but I think the change to Lee for Pittsburgh has sort of, opened something up for this team. And if they can score a few points, we've seen their defense play good at times. So I would be looking toward the points here, which was kind of a theme for me this week. I'm kind of looking at the underdogs to have some value, and this one is no exception.
What are you thinking, Tony? Maulers plus the 8 or the Breakers minus the more than a touchdown off of the loss?
Well, how bad is Kyle Lauletta, where Badley comes off the street and throws for 170 yards, and Lauletta's still backing him up on the team, and Josh Love obviously got cut. First thing, when capping this game from our friends at AccuWeather, 95% chance of thunderstorms for this noon kickoff with flash flooding possible. So we could be in for a delay here. And apparently, based on what the forecast looks like throughout the day, it'll be better for the final game of week 6, but it's supposed to rain all day. So that to me tells me that I'm going to want the team that gets up early in this game because it's going to be tough to come back. And Lee certainly was a breath of fresh air for the Maulers, even though they were down to the Gamblers for most of that game before a couple of fourth quarter touchdowns. But it then becomes, all right, well, what can you pick up on film from Lee tendency wise that you can take advantage of if you're, Larry Fedora and John Tenuta and the Breakers coaching staff. So that's one interesting note. It's going to keep me off this game completely because I agree with Trig that the line's too high. Look, but what we saw from the Breakers against the Generals, because I was on the Breakers too, was a client loss. They missed a big pass play. Sloter had somebody very deep, wide open, and tried to lead him while the kid rushed upfield instead of trying to cross the field. Would have been a 6 easy, and that ended up being a huge factor in them playing from behind all day. And you have to say, that from what we saw at the beginning of the season, where they destroyed, they held off the Stars and then destroyed the Bandits, a team that we at that point expected to be one of the best teams, that this New Orleans team has been underachievers over the last few weeks. They lost to the Stallions, beat the Gamblers barely on the last play of the game, and then lost last week to the Generals. So again, because this number is so high and the weather is going to be what it's potentially going to be, I'm a little wary of laying points because it's an offense that at this point has really been predicated on the passing game. You've had Jay Adams and Johnny Dixon and Tywan Taylor really excel. Jordan Ellis out of the backfield. So if those playmakers are slowed down by a muddy field or by the elements, then certainly, this could be a game that they could fumble away just on that alone. So not going to lay the points, not going to take them with Pittsburgh either. There's just too many variables regarding Badley and a team coming off their first win for me to touch the Mauler. So no touch for me.
Tony, to your point on the weather, how much are you factoring that into your handicap? Because what we've seen in the USFL so far is if there's bad weather, they'd kind of just don't play the game until there's better weather. That's what I've noticed. So is it a huge part of your handicap? Because normally when I would look at that, wind and rain, I'd be like, oh, bet the under. But
Sure.
I'm kind of pumping the brakes on that in the USFL because they'll just kind of postpone the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but we've had lightning delays though, Drew. I mean, it's a little different. To me, it's the same thing as NFL handicapping. For totals, you've got to know what the weather's going to be like. And again, I'm with you. Unders when the weather's poor. But I think if we hadn't had those lightning delays and they've had to just play through consistent rain, I think we'd be right in terms of it'd be lower scoring, especially in this league where everything's sloppy as it is. So the fact that they're pausing games, I think, is more lightning related and kind of for sake of watchability, been something that's been a blessing in terms of not having to make us watch them stopping through the rain.
Hey, sometimes that I guess it depends on what tickles your fancy. That can be fun football to watch sometimes, Tony. But hey, guys, let's finish it up here. We got Houston Gamblers, New Jersey Generals up next. Tony, coming to you first. 38.5, 39 being the total. -7, so minus a full touchdown pretty much across the board is what I'm seeing. That's New Jersey. The Generals looking strong. You looking to lay the full touchdown here in the nightcap on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the Gamblers have been an interesting watch because they've been in most of these games, and then you watch them lose all the time. And hey, DeAndre Johnson has been one of the bright spots in this league. Just stepping in and taking over when he was given his chance. Once again, he was great last week. Passed for 213 yards, rushed for 2 touchdowns, and another 39 in a win over a New Orleans team that has a solid front four. So certainly what he's doing isn't a fluke. I wouldn't bet against the Generals this week, especially as the weather is supposed to clear up by the final game on Sunday.
Trig, what are you thinking for the nightcap final game on the Week 6 slate?
Well, I'll make it like a clean sweep here in terms of leaning toward the dog. Just again, we've seen Houston play fairly well at times, and then they, for whatever reason, like I don't know if it's Kevin Sumlin or like this team just like can't make an adjustment. I guess they can't make an adjustment because a lot of the sort of poor play from Houston's come in the second half. I've come on this show pretty much all season and talked about not liking Clayton Thorson, and I still sort of hold to that. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but I don't know if I'm gonna lay a touchdown here with the Generals because we have seen Houston. Their defense is solid and it's kept them in games. And so, Drew, we mentioned 4 overs last week, a clean sweep of overs, 4-0. I would be shocked if that happens again this week. I can almost just about guarantee it won't. I don't think we're getting back-to-back weeks where all 4 games go over the total. And this is one where I could kind of see points being at a premium. We know New Jersey likes to run the football. Riley has sort of gone to Johnson at quarterback as the guy now. So we know that New Jersey is willing to just grind it out on the ground, run the ball, and sort of lean on that. And Houston, like I said, I think their defense will be the reason they're in this game if they are in this game. So with that all being said, 39 points seems like it's a tad high. And so for that reason, I would look toward this being a spot where we could see an under. And if you start to see like Saturday's games go over and this ticks up further because like all of a sudden there's this run of overs, I think that might be a really good spot to jump in and take an under on Sunday. So I'll lean toward the under, Gamblers Generals in the finale for Week 6.
Like it, Trig. Guys, good stuff here. Breaking down the 4 games. We got Tony Mejia, WagerTalk.com. Tony, I'll throw it over to you. Final thoughts and best bets, man.
Well, yeah, I think what we saw in Week 5 was people opening up the bag of tricks a little more, which is interesting. And a lot of that is increased practice time. A lot of that is throwing caution to the wind and keeping teams interested. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how Mother Nature allows these teams to play this week. But certainly, if nothing else, Week 5 was entertaining. My best bet for Week 6, at some point you lose 4 games by a combined 14 points back to back to back to back. You hang your head if you're down a little bit. And I don't know if Kevin Sumlin's rallying these guys this week. Certainly, I think he's going to be outcoached by Mike Riley. I think the weather will have the least amount of impact in that final game on Sunday. So I'm going to lay the points. I'm going to ride the hot-handed DeAndre Johnson, who can beat you with his legs, and that short passing game. Give me the Generals to win by double digits going away.
All right, I'm going to follow that up, guys, with another favorite look here. -6 in the hook on the Birmingham Stallions. Home favorite. I think they get a little separation here from the Michigan Panthers. So -6.5. You can even get a -6, guys, at one of the more well-known global books. -6, -105. So take advantage of it there on the Birmingham Stallions at home field advantage Saturday night on the Stallions. Throw it over to Trig at Top Flight SI on Twitter. Check him out, WagerTalk.com. Knows his baseball, knows his USFL. Trig, what do you got for final thoughts for the show and best bet, man?
Well, in summary, I'm looking at unders and I'm looking at dogs in USFL this week. Not sure which ones I'll get to the window with officially, but if I do, you'll know about it because I'll tweet it out. So I guess I'll just start best bet for the show with the first underdog on the board. It's the first game, Saturday, 1 p.m. Right at the top of the show, I said, I really feel like Tampa Bay and Philadelphia are equals. And if you're going to give me a field goal with two teams that really kind of, to me, rate out as like just about dead even, I'm going to take it. And so, for Philly, I feel like this line's a little bit inflated by what happened last week. Tampa Bay, kind of squeaks out a win, and Philly loses a game to Birmingham, which we all kind of agree is the top team in the league right now. That was a lot, in my opinion, much closer than the final score suggests. So, this is a game I could absolutely, it's a big game because both of these teams kind of really need this if they want to make the playoffs. So, big spot, getting 3 points. I'm going to roll with the Stars here. That negative point differential just keeps jumping out with Tampa Bay. I think the Bandits are just a tad overvalued. It's probably why they're laying 3 here in a game where that I feel should be closer to a pick and could actually very well go off closer to a pick. I think we saw Philly in a similar spot a few weeks ago move as a 2-point dog or so back down to a pick in a game that I believe they did end up winning. So I think Philly's a little undervalued in this spot. I'd like him to get it done this week, and I'll take the points.
All right, looking towards the Stars plus the points for Adam Trigger. Just heard it there. I'm on the Birmingham Stallions -6. That's the low water mark. 6 in the hook, widely available. And Tony Mejia, New Jersey Generals, minus the touchdown. Check out Tony Mejia, Adam Trigger, WagerTalk.com. I am Drew Martin. Find me as well. Guys, we'll be back next Thursday. Please smash that like button. Let us know below in the reply section. Any questions, we'll answer them next week. And what you are betting this weekend, all is welcome. So, guys, have a great week 6 USFL. Best of luck with your bets. We'll talk next week. Thanks for tuning in.